Welcome back to SabreTalk. I'm your host, Brandon Bombardo. We're here for episode 3. Today, my guest is the man, the myth, the legend, RouterBob. How you doing?
My wife says I'm a legend in my own mind. I'm being great, Brandon.
Well, I appreciate you joining me. Bob, I think it's easy to say that you've revolutionized this industry. You've been a big part of this industry, and you've taught me a lot over the years, and I'm really honored to have you on the show chatting with me a little bit. But, for our guests, a lot of them have followed you for years. I mean, you've had tons of videos, and you've been kind of a staple to the CNC industry and really showing people how to do things, how to make things, how to, be better with a CNC machine. So I guess for the people that haven't followed you or some of the newer users, start off, let's tell everybody a little bit about your journey. Let's talk a little bit about kind of how we got here and how you got to where you are.
Well, one advantage, Brandon, I've outlived all my competitors, and I'm old enough that I've been in this since it started. So it's interesting. You'll find when you hear the story while we're where we're at right now.
Yeah.
This is how I landed. Let me start way back, and where I really got involved in CNC was at a college. And here's where that came from. There was a wood technology program in a college in Pittsburgh State University in Pittsburgh, Kansas. And I got a job teaching. And worldwide, the school in Rosenheim, Germany would be the closest philosophically. So, and basically it was a place for people who liked woodwork to get education and get jobs with companies to do that. So that was the whole point. And it was really neat. It's great. Being around college kids is great. Keeps you young. And so, and we had a really nice facility. We had lots of equipment for them to learn how to use. And then I started looking at what kind of jobs they were getting. Now, the Architectural Woodwork Institute had really supported the school, but they're really, really high end, but they're not high tech. All right. And so I said, well, it'd be nice if the kids could start out and make more money. Huh? Well, if you want to do that, you pretty much have to target industries where they're more high tech, because then they pay their workers more, they pay their managers more. And so where we were missing was a CNC router. We could get other kinds of machinery, molders, straight line, all that stuff. I couldn't get a router. And so I ended up coming up with an idea of what if we could create an advanced wood processing center for that part of the world, and with the money, buy a router, and that's how it happened.
Wow.
And so that got funded, and it worked out real well. And so we took the money, and we bought a Como CNC router.
Okay.
And I'll never forget the day when they unloaded it with a big crane and all. And so now you got to remember, in the early, let's just be like 1991, it's a whole lot different than it is now.
Yeah.
And so there was no software. So you wrote programs. I mean, everything you made, you wrote the program. There wasn't any nice software.
That you wrote the G-code, correct?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
There were cabinet programs, but they just made drawings and showed you how to cut your sheets out. They didn't cut parts out.
Yeah.
And so that's kind of where it got started. So we taught the kids how to do all that.
Wow.
And the industry's full of these kids that know how to do it. So that's where it started.
Yeah.
And back then, there weren't tool changers. There was no flaw tool, none of the stuff we have now. So if a guy needed 3 tools, it had to have 3 heads. So when you went in to see a customer, the first thing you said was, how many tools do you need? And the machine had to have, okay, I need 4 heads. Okay, the tool plate's 8 feet long. So everything else is huge. And the real players were Como and a couple Japanese companies. There weren't all the smaller companies. So that's how it all got started.
And that's why machines were so big back then.
Oh, yeah, sure, yeah, but it was all physics.
Yeah.
Okay, so then I got an 8-foot tool plate and all the stuff that's going on. Then everything behind it's got to be big. Then I got to have these giant motors to make it move. So that's why they were so big.
Yeah, that's unreal. And when you look at that, I mean, it explains a lot about why machines were big and slow back then.
They had to be.
But initially, what drew you to the CNC machines in general? I mean, what got you to look at the CNC world? I mean, I know you said it was something to do with the kids and the money, but...
Well, I knew for us to get the kids to make more money on their jobs, so we had to have that incorporated. So that's what happened. All right. So that goes good. So a couple of years later, Como comes by and they say, hey, we're looking for somebody. Are you interested? And I said, yes, I am.
That's cool.
So, and it's really funny. My whole life, I've been at the right place, the right time. Mm-hmm. Okay, so I start with Como. Now, back in those days, compared to what we do now, every customer went to the factory for a week of training.
Yeah.
And I can remember. And so the first week I worked I went through that training, even though I knew how to run the machine, because I wanted to see what our customers did.
Understood.
And so you learn to write the code, and they had they had a felt marker that went in the spindle. So you write your program and then you run it and it draws the shape out. So that's what.
Yeah.
And there's actually ink on the walls for people to turn the spindle on and doing that.
Oh,
yeah. So that was the nature of the industry, and so that's really where it all got started. About a month, I guess I'd been there a month. We bought a software company called SimTech in Chicago.
okay. Yep.
Now I was the only sales guy at the company who knew how to run a machine. I saw that software. I said, "Holy cow, this is unbelievable."
Yeah.
And so eventually, then I became the sales manager for that. I had an office in Chicago. And I became the sales manager just for the software division.
Okay.
And so that's kind of how all that fit together. And once again, it's because I knew how to run a machine and I saw what the software was going to do.
Yeah.
And so that's kind of where that got started. That got my feet into CNC. But you got to remember, back then, cabinet software was just for figuring prices instead.
Yeah.
It wasn't for making things.
Yeah, because let's talk a little bit about that, because I want to talk a little bit about what you think your most significant change that you've had with the CNC industry over the years. And I think I know the answer to this, but I want our viewers to hear it, because as you said, you came from the college, you went to Como, you were working with the machines there, then they buy this software company and you become kind of the pioneer of that. What do you think are the most significant changes you've seen in the CNC industry?
Well, the most significant is going to be nested-based manufacturer, but let's lead up to that.
Yeah.
Okay, so at the time, here's what was happening. We came up with this idea of nesting. And so remember, for nesting to work, we had to do flow-through.
Uh-huh.
Now, the first time I ever saw flow-through was a store fixture company in Tulsa. They were using, instead of MDF, they were using particle board, and they used a 100 horsepower vacuum pump.
Wow.
I saw another instance over in Tennessee at a furniture company, and the table had ingrained balsa wood panels.
Okay.
Now, upholstered furniture is plywood stuff.
Yep.
All right, so they had these ingrained balsa wood panels. They put the stuff on there, turn a huge pump on there. You couldn't stop at a corner. If you stopped at a corner, it caught on fire.
Oh.
So when you came to square corner, you had to loop around. They had a bucket of water standing by the machine because when it catches on fire, that balsa just burns it.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, but that was in order for all this nesting to work, a couple of things had to be created. One is we had to figure out flow through, because the concept of zero setup is what made it work.
Because originally, before flow through, it was all jigs and fixtures, correct?
Oh yeah, you had to make, at the machine at Pittsburgh State, it's a 5 horsepower vacuum pump.
Okay.
So everything had to be gasketed and all that stuff, which is great. It's great to have that knowledge, but that wouldn't work nowadays.
Yeah.
You couldn't do cabinets.
Correct.
And so, the reason that worked is it gave us that concept of zero setup. So every sheet in the nest can be different. That's where that came from.
Yep.
But nowadays it doesn't take a 40 horsepower.
Yeah.
So that had to happen, and pretty much tool changers had to happen.
Yeah.
Once again, same concept. So every sheet could be different. So that's where the basis of what we do today.
So vacuum and tool changer is probably the biggest things that revolutionized this.
Zero setup. Think about the MDF door business is interesting because before nesting,
the
MDF door business, you had these machines that you might have 4 heads on.
Yep.
Okay. And now you're not making 4 separate, you're making 4 part. You're programming run one and slaving the others down. So you're going to get, like, every time you run, you're 4.
Yeah.
Okay, well, that's one size door. So they had warehouses full of stacks and stacks and stacks of doors. So when you get an order, I need 1 here, 2 here, 3 here. So they had to have that inventory. Think what that cost.
Yeah.
We had customers that had 17 of those machines. That's how big the door business was back. And see, now it's so much simpler. Back then, they foiled the doors. So they had these vacuum presses that would put this foil on there. Oh, yeah. All right, now think what nesting did. All of a sudden now with nesting, with the ability with zero setup, now I can actually create what I need for the order. Yeah. How are doors sold? They're sold by kitchen. So a kitchen's got 1 of these, 2 of these. That's what nesting did.
It allowed you to make all of your doors on one sheet.
Yeah, well, or could do how do you get your orders? I can order for Mrs. Jones's house. All the doors in her kitchen get nested together.
Correct.
And see, nesting then let me put all those together, and the computer figured out how to get the yield.
And that's what cut your material usage down.
And then we did the first nested doors in a program called DoorSim that SimTech had.
Okay.
Yeah, and so that's where all that came from.
Yeah.
And so that really revolutionized how everything got done. And then the other thing that happened was we had to have a way to make it intelligent. So we did that with layer names. So you could take a cabinet and you say, okay, a dado's on a layer named such and such, and the outside's on a layer. And then we had what we called knowledge, and knowledge was how feed range tools, all that.
Yeah.
So knowledge was how we did things. So then we could say, okay, I'm going to associate anything on this layer, apply that knowledge. That's how the stuff works today. But that's how we created it.
Let's touch on that a little bit here. So, is there a particular project, because you've been involved in this industry a long time, is there a particular project or experience that stood out in your career?
Yeah, probably. I would say the most significant would be nesting, but there was something else going on back then. Okay. During that period of time, you got to remember, nesting was an anomaly.
Yeah.
I mean, people look at you like you got off a spaceship. They absolutely did. Because the other people were all trying to sell saws and point-to-points. That's all driven by the European market.
Yeah.
Oh, yes, you need a saw and a point-to-point. Well, the guy wants to sell 2 machines.
Correct. Yeah.
All right, and so we had a customer in Nashville. I won't mention his name, but it was a store fixture company. They really did hospital interiors, and so he had a big project.
Yep.
And they're really nice people. They said, is there a way you guys can figure out which way I should go? Should I go with the saw pointed point or should I nest it? And I said, do you have the job? He said, yeah, here's the job we just did, so we know what the numbers are. Mm-hmm. Okay, so I had a dealer with me, and he actually also sold saws and points to points. So I said, okay, I'll do the analysis on routing. You do the analysis on that. We'll come back in a couple of weeks. It will give him the numbers. Mm-hmm. Okay, so it was an auditorium in a hospital, and it had these large counters that were curved, rows and rows and rows of them. So that's what we attacked. We said, okay, how much does it cost to make those nesting? How much does it cost to make those with a saw and point to point? Mm-hmm. So then I created the programs, and I ran them on a machine to make sure the times I used were accurate. Yeah. Not software estimates.
Yeah.
I ran the different programs and wrote the times down, so we knew. All right, so we put it all back together, and nesting won.
Yeah.
And nesting won because it cost less to make those parts with nest. And the real reason is it just took one operator instead of 2.
Yeah.
But see, that was the first definitive thing we saw that proved this was the way to go. And the reason nesting won is that. It costs less to produce them. And so early on, you had all these people that were, they're crazy. They're crazy. Yeah. It got to the point where and I see cabinet vision, cabinet making comes along, and then all of a sudden the guy didn't believe it. So now you're sitting there doing a whole kitchen. Yeah. So you're sitting there making a whole. He drives up with a trailer with 25 sheets of material, and you cut his kitchen out to prove it works. Yeah. We don't have to do that now.
I was just going to say that, when I look back on my career, even 15 years ago when I was doing this, people still were skeptical. Like, does the CNC really going to work? Mm-hmm. They don't ask that question anymore. Like, everybody knows the CNC works,
Back then they didn't.
Yeah, I was going to say.
Because all your competitors were lying to them.
Yeah.
Oh, you need a saw and point to point.
Yeah.
Okay, well, here's what that led to. So that led to, because I was involved in the software company, the development of technology centers.
Yeah.
Here's what a technology center was. Back then we had distributors a lot. So it was a distributor who had a machine.
Yeah.
So we had all the stuff so a customer could come in and we could prove it.
Yeah.
And so I had 5 or 6 technology centers across the company. So I spent a lot of time going back and forth to those. So that's how that all evolved.
Yeah.
Now, eventually, like I said, we won, but we had to prove it at the time.
Correct. Yeah. And you were a big part of nesting, and you were a big part of developing nesting,
I used to be Como speaker.
Yeah.
So if somebody needed a guest speaker, they got RouterBob.
Yeah.
And I don't give a shit what the topic was. It was nesting and why it's going to change.
Yeah.
That was
yeah.
No matter what the topic was, they talk about nesting.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, and that's, honestly, let's touch on that real quick, because while you were at Como, not only were you their speaker, but that's how you got the name RouterBob, is it not?
Well, where RouterBob came from. Now, you got to remember where the internet was back then. So this would be like January 95.
Okay.
So back then, the internet was AOL.
Yeah.
So America Online. So they sent all these little discs out.
Yep.
So I was gonna be Como Bob.
Okay.
But one of the sextons that owned Como was named Bob. I think he already had it.
Okay.
So that's why I picked RouterBob.
I got you.
And so it was RouterBob at AOL.com. I still have that. I'm RouterBob at ShopSabre. I'm RouterBob at Mag.com. but that's stuck. That's where that all came from.
Yeah, and that's how people started calling you, because they just saw your email as RouterBob. Yeah.
There was a short period of time I was Stone Cold Bob. Most of the time I was RouterBob.
That's awesome. Yeah, I think it's so cool when you think about that, because everybody, that's a popular question I get is, why do they call it RouterBob? And it's because of your email, because that's what everybody saw it coming through as.
Now, let me tell you what else happened during this time. Okay, to make this really go big, it was because of cabinets.
Yeah.
Okay, so, we knew how to do nesting. We knew how to do all that stuff. We knew how to make MDF doors. But in order to drive the cabinet business, that was what's difficult. And at that time, there were really two cabinet companies, Cabinet Vision and Cabinet, where they hated each other.
Gotcha.
So one night, and see, at Syntec, if they could give me a layered drawing, I could process it.
Yep.
Well, Cabinet Vision couldn't give us when we could open.
Yeah.
But one night at 2 a.m., we got a cabinet. And it was a friend of mine, it was a dealer, and a cabinetware rep that we knew, and he kept giving us drawings till he gave me a layered dig so if I could open.
Wow.
And once they gave us the ability to do our SimTech software process. So we cut the first base cabinet that I know of with Nesty doing that.
That's awesome.
Oh, yeah, it's really neat.
It's cool because it's 2 a.m. Like I just picture this whole thing like it's like you guys are scientists in a laboratory figuring this thing out.
Okay, so let's see what happens after that. Then as part of the process using technology centers, I began working with the cabinet software companies a lot.
Mm-hmm.
And I kind of got bored, to tell you the truth.
Okay.
And so I had the opportunity to work for Cabinet Vision.
Okay.
And I believe that was 1999.
Okay.
And so then what that led to was I spent some time with the programmers to teach them CNC.
Yeah.
To explain to them. And I remember going out there. Their office was in California. I remember going out there on a Monday morning and saying, guys, I'm not leaving until I got a disc. Because they don't like outsiders.
Yeah.
Programmers, they don't like outsiders. Yeah. Mess for the business. I said, guys, I'm not leaving until I got a disc. Thursday morning, I come in and they say, here's your disc.
That's cool.
So Monday morning, I went out to a company and debugged it.
Okay.
And that's what made Screen Machine work. Now, think about how all that happened. So now, all of a sudden, you've got a company like Cabinet Vision who can produce those parts, and you can get them nested.
Yeah.
You can tool path it.
Yeah.
So all of a sudden, now that was the link between cabinet design software that we use today and that.
Yeah.
And then here's what really made it all happen. What made it go big. Okay, when we were trying to figure out who to generate code for, because that wasn't what we wanted to generate nested programs. We used AlphaCam.
Okay.
So we went to AlphaCam, worked the deal out. AlphaCam wrote the API so that we could link to them.
Mm-hmm.
Anybody AlphaCam could post to, we could post code to.
That's what really took it off.
That's what nested base took. When that happened, it went to everywhere.
And that's where you guys went to the show with that, if I'm not mistaken, right?
2000 IWF, we went to the show in Atlanta, and I believe on that Saturday we sold $1 million worth of software.
Wow.
Hey, I think that's the correct number. But what you had is first off, back then, machines were $175,000.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
It's not like it is now.
Yeah, exactly.
And, and so the guys were lined up with their checkbooks, writing checks for $23,000 to $25,000 a piece.
For software.
For every sales guy had a line of people. That's what it was.
And you think about today's world, like now software is a couple $100 a month, and it's like.
Think about what happened.
Yeah.
So then you had the guys who were buying machines, and once again, there were no alternatives that didn't cost a lot.
Correct.
And I can remember many times talking on the phone to people, and one guy that, you get to know all these people.
Yeah.
And the guy called me on the phone. He said, "This is the worst thing I've ever done."
Okay.
He said, "I bought this machine. They put it in my shop. They didn't show me how to run it."
Yep.
He said, "It takes up all the room." He says, "I've lost customers I've had for 10 years because I can't get anything done." Now, I'm not going to tell you who the manufacturer was. It would surprise you, but here's the deal. They didn't teach him how to do it.
Yeah.
So if who you buy the machine from can't teach you how to do it, how do you think you're going to learn it?
Correct.
That's what happened. And I had a number of calls like that where I thought, oh my God, that's terrible.
Yeah.
And there's nothing, there were good machines and they didn't know how to use it, and it destroyed the guys.
And then evolution of RouterBob videos. Yeah. I mean, that's where the training came from. That's where all the, I
got to the point I could be driving down the road and explain to them how to configure the CNC on Cabinet Vision.
You could do it without even being at the computer.
Yeah, oh yeah.
That's incredible.
Yeah. Just out of memory. Okay, I click this, what do you say? Yeah, so that's how it all got started.
That's pretty cool.
And then he moved forward and, once again, the machines, but people were paying $150,000, $50,000 to $200,000 for a machine.
Yeah.
Okay, well, you move forward, and all of a sudden, there's the development of lower cost machines.
Yeah, because right about this time we had started.
Yeah, so people figured out, well, wait a minute. You don't have to use the mindset you used because things are faster now.
Yeah.
And also, another thing that happened, let's step back a little bit. The machines were really slow early on.
Yeah.
Okay, think about that. So you got this great big ball screw where you only turn them so far.
Yeah.
You can only turn them so fast that they start flopping, so you got to make them bigger.
Yeah.
In about 97 or 98, the machine control people figured out high-speed machining.
Gotcha.
Okay, but before that, the controls weren't fast enough to process it.
Gotcha.
Well, once they figured that out, all of a sudden now the control was much faster than the machine.
Yeah.
And that's where stationary ball screw came in.
And that's with the rotational nuts.
Yeah. See, so now we've got a ball screw that doesn't move. Now I rotate. Well, look at how little mass I'm moving.
Correct.
And so that became high-speed machining.
And that's where the zero whip technology came from and all of that. Yeah.
Yeah. See, that's what made all that happen. So the old days, we didn't have the opportunity.
Correct.
So that's when machines start getting faster.
Yeah.
And that's why you see the technology we use today is that. That's why. And so when you hear some of the competitors talk about rack and pinion stuff, they have no clue about the engineering.
Yeah.
Correct. They're sales guys.
Yeah.
Trying to make a living. But yeah, I see that. I say they have no clue on what it took to make this happen.
And I think that's what's cool for our viewers to hear here is that you have been through this from the beginning. It's not like we just jumped into the middle. Like, it from the day it started and kind of moved it throughout. And, from your perspective, I guess, what makes a CNC machine like a ShopSabre stand out in the marketplace?
I think it's a value.
Yeah.
And there's a couple reasons for that. Number one, if you look at our company,
yep,
we're very vertically integrated. We get structural steel comes in on this end and routers go out the other side.
Yep.
And there's some things that you buy, you buy guide rails and stuff like that. We have a full machine shop.
Yeah.
We don't have machine. We have a mill big enough to do a single frame on the biggest machine we make in one set. Think how significant that is.
It is.
Because now all of a sudden, if I can put that frame on the mill, and by the way, we have to use a laser to get it aligned. That's how precise it is. And if I can do all the settings or on the machine in one setup, then the machine picks up the accuracy of the machine. But there's more to it than that.
Yeah.
One of the things I learned when we started doing that is that finish pass. Okay, yeah. So let's say that we machine an area for a guide rail to bolt on. And if you watch our videos, you'll see we drill the holes and they thread and all that stuff.
Yep.
They do a finish pass, and that finish pass determines the accuracy of your machine.
Correct.
Because they have to just take a little bit of it so nothing moves.
Yeah.
So most people have no idea that's what it takes, but we're able to do all that. Now, the other thing is look at the machinery business. Historically, the machinery business has been distributors.
Yeah.
Well, they got sales guys. Well, in fact, let me back up. When I was in the machinery business, here's how it was done. You went to see a customer. You went to the factory. You went to visit 3 or 4 people. It was a big deal.
Yeah.
All right. Well, now, look, it's changed now. That's not required anymore because they know it all works.
Yeah.
We don't have to prove them the part works. All right. So then earlier in a phase I was working, we were selling really, really inexpensive machines at the time. And I noticed, I used to know all the customers.
Yeah.
And I knew 1 month, 8 machines we shipped, I knew they'd never seen.
Yeah.
So you see, when you get to that price range, all of a sudden, it's not when I first started, the machine cost more than a house.
Yeah.
So the customers are sweating blood before it's over.
Yeah.
All right. Now all of a sudden, it's the price of a pickup truck.
Yeah.
So it's not nearly as difficult. So now I don't have to have the distributor to take the guy to the factory and sell it. That's not required anymore.
Yep.
Well, if I take one of our ISs, for instance, here.
Yep.
Run to the distributor, the machine's $100,000
easily,
and the dealer has to be paid.
Correct.
We don't need them. We don't need the dealer sales. We could do it direct, and that's why the shops I think are such a great value, and it's always going to be that way.
Yeah, I think the beauty of what we do is we remove the bulk, the stuff that you don't need.
There's 100,000 square feet out here.
Yeah, we got rid of the middleman.
It's full.
Yeah,
that's why it worked. It's all because people understand what the machines do.
Yeah. And the power of the internet has made that possible. You can go to the internet and see stuff. And flying to Minnesota now to actually tour the facility is a lot cheaper than what it used to be, And it's a lot easier to come here. You can get in and out in the same day, and it's a lot easier to, come view it yourself.
Yeah, exactly.
For someone starting in the CNC world, let's talk about, you talked about some of these customers that had never seen a CNC machine before. What advice do you give those type of people? And, are there common mistakes that you try to help people avoid?
See, I always get back to if the guy you buy the machine from can't make your part, how are you going to figure this out?
Yeah.
And that's a mistake a lot of people make. I saved this money. They made a huge. First off, once they get a machine, they realize they pay for themselves really fast.
Yeah. Yeah.
But that you don't understand that when you start. So I think that part's really important. Now, early on, what helped me in the CNC business, I could make stuff.
Yeah.
So I could go to a guy's shop and make anything he wanted.
Yep.
And that helps. When you're competing against guys with suits on and ties, you're probably going to win. And then go back to the guy's part.
Yeah.
That works out pretty good.
Yeah.
And it's the same thing. So being able to make their part, give them confidence that you work. If you look at our company here, look at our support, look at the reputation we have in support. Yeah. Now, here's a funny thing I learned at Como early on. I said, man, if a customer's got a problem and if you deal with it quickly, he doesn't remember the head fell off in the middle of the cutting. He remembers how good your through. Yeah. Same thing. If you deal with the problem, take care of it, then that's what they remember.
Yeah, I think a lot of that goes back to, we always say it, like, we can't promise you that we're going to be perfect in every aspect, right? So these are machines. Things can go wrong. You have a user involved. Like, your operator sometimes makes a mistake. But what we can promise you is that we're going to be there to take care of you, back you up, make sure that everything goes right from the point of I need help to I'm back up and running.
Yeah, exactly. And we've done really well at that. And the other thing I tell people, get plenty of training on your software. Don't try to cheat that, because that's where your problem's going to be. It's the machine. Look at machines. Once you get it set up, unless they crash it, you don't really get a lot of calls.
Yeah.
But software is different.
It's the people. When I
first started in the cabinet business, software business, when I left Como, our customers loved us.
Yep.
Holy cow, I get in the cabinet software business, and a third of the people want their money back today.
Yeah.
And probably every day it's a different third.
Yeah.
And you go in, there's 26 people on the phone, and they're waiting 4 hours to talk to them.
Wow.
It's just unbelievable how much support that takes.
Yeah.
Well, everything works till I hit this button over here and my back's the wrong side. It's that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
So that's software. And so I always tell people, expect that's going to be more difficult. Be careful what you select.
Yeah.
Now, if you're scared to death, we do a lot of stuff with KCD now.
Yeah.
We do it with all.
Yeah.
And if that's a really good way to start.
Yeah.
If you're a bit apprehensive, because it's simpler, it works, support's great.
Yeah.
Now, you may get to the point where you want something more sophisticated. You got to remember, Mosaic was written by the same guy that wrote Cabinet Vision.
Correct.
Same guy wrote it.
Yeah.
All right. So it's got all these robust features.
Yeah.
The difference is it's pay as you go.
Yeah.
Instead of $25,000, it's $125 a month. So, but even at that, don't go cheap. Invest in training if you need. There's plenty of ways now where you can get that.
Well, I think that's what blows me away is that you just said it there. Like, the softwares before were $25,000, right? Oh, yeah. Now they're $125 a month, but people are not willing to buy a few hours of training. And it's like, you already saved a bunch of money. You might as well spend $1,000 in some training, right?
What I always tell people? I said, look, buy 5 hours of training.
Yeah.
Okay. And then as you're, first off, let's say you're using, Mosaic would be a good choice because they've got all this tutorial stuff.
Yeah.
And so does KCD.
Yeah.
So learn what you can.
Yep.
Things you don't understand, make a list.
Yep.
Okay. Then use your first hour training and get those questions answered.
Yeah.
And do it that way. And then, it's your responsibility to, you have to put your effort into it.
Yeah.
Yeah. If you'll do that, and it'll be much simpler. There's what I used to call a formula for success. We've done videos on that. And if you follow that, you'll be successful, because we tried to find things, common things that people who were successful did.
Yes.
And we said, okay, well, if you do that, you'll be successful too.
Yeah.
Now, what you run into sometimes in the cabinet business, we came up early on for people to be successful. We call it a CNC cabinet technology.
Yeah.
Construction. If you do this, it works great. We did a video on it. Well, I want to build cabinets like Uncle Joe did.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, that's fine, but for me, I go make cat. We know how to make cat. I'd start there.
Yeah.
And you get some people who are stubborn about that.
Well, that's my favorite part is I deal with it a lot now, where it was, it's the second or third generation running the cabinet business. And they're like, well, granddad didn't use a CNC machine. Right. Well, I promise you, if granddad had access to a CNC machine, he would have used the CNC machine.
Granddad's buying your machine.
Yeah. Yeah.
One of the things I learned in the machinery business way back is if you go into a company, if you see an old guy, if he's got a son, daughter, son-in-law, daughter, he'll buy the machine.
Yeah. Yeah, looking out for the future of the business.
Yeah. He doesn't. He's probably not going to.
Yeah.
If he's got a family member, he'll buy the machine.
Yeah, and a lot of that is because, again, as we pass things down, I mean, look at my father, right? My father started this, and my brother and I being involved, like, he made improvements in the business because his hope was that this continues to grow for us to be involved. And, I think people, watching and listening to this, you need to think about that, as you're sitting there without a CNC, if you're without a CNC in the cabinet industry today, you're behind. I mean, you should have one by now.
That's a whole, there's a whole different discussion about that.
Yeah.
Think about what people do.
Yeah.
We saw this during COVID a lot. So, and where this actually came from is one time I had a customer in San Antonio, Texas. I never thought about it. I didn't think about this. He told me. And back then we sold a lot of 5x12 machines to, now cabinet shops don't buy, but store fixture people did.
Yeah.
Office furniture because the material's bigger.
Yeah.
So he has an office furniture company he gets from his dad. Because he buys a machine. The machine was like $190,000.
Okay.
And his dad said, "Why'd you buy that?" He said, "Well, Dad, if I came to you and I asked you this," I said, "Okay, will you pay me?" It worked out $17.79. It's what the lease payment was.
Yeah.
Okay, per hour. He said, "Hey, I want you to pay me that per hour, 40 hours a week to work." He says, "Now, I'll outproduce any 3 people you got back there, right? If we need to work overtime, there's no charge. We need to come in on a weekend and do prototyping. There's no charge for that. You don't have to pay me any workman's comp or any insurance. And after 5 years, I'll work for free. Would you hire me?" And the dad said, "You did right away." That's exactly what this machine did for that company. And that's where the whole
truth.
That's where the whole idea of employee money.
Yeah, and it's crazy when you think about it now. Is at that time it was $17. Now we're down
$5.
Yeah, $3 to $6 an hour, depending which machine you go with. And it's like, what employee can you get for $3 to $6 an hour nowadays? Nobody.
It's a pickup.
Yeah.
If you can go down and buy a new pickup, you can buy a machine.
Correct. Yeah, and a lot of times the pickup's still more money nowadays. Now the pickups are $100,000 and I can't figure out how to turn them on anymore. But you start looking at it and it's like, the machines are cheaper and they're making you money.
But that's where all that came from. When he told me that, I said, "Wow, that turned a light came on."
Yeah.
That's exactly why people buy this.
Yeah.
That's why we do videos about that.
No, exactly. We've got a lot of cool things that we've done with that. And, let's talk about those videos, right? We've got a lot of videos on ShopSabre.com. Yeah. We've got a lot of videos on YouTube. We've done a lot of cool things. We have some new videos coming out soon, too. I mean, obviously, we're going to be going to AWFS here in about a month. Pretty excited about that. And we have a video that you and I were going to be working on here in the coming months. We talked about it yesterday a little bit. But it's going to be talking a little bit about the process, right? And we're going to talk about different options that you need. And
let's back up a little bit.
Yeah.
The video program has evolved.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, because remember, early on, when we first started this, early on, we said, people don't know who we are, so every video had what we call a walk around.
Yeah.
Because that might be the only time they ever saw it.
Correct.
But what we were trying to do was show people what the machine would do.
Correct.
I always used to tell people, my job is to make you think you can do it too.
Yeah, correct.
It's the same.
Exactly.
So we were trying to educate people, help them understand, hey, holy cow, I can do that with that machine.
Correct.
Or maybe we showed them something that they hadn't thought of.
Correct. That's my favorite, is when you hit people that didn't even realize they could do it with the machine. Yeah.
One of the other underlying things from a brand standpoint for us, I've always wanted is I want people, if you look, we do some really sophisticated stuff. I want people to think of us as some people that can do that. It goes back to if who you buy the machine from can't teach you how you find out.
Exactly.
And that's why we've done some really sophisticated stuff.
Yeah.
The beaded face frame door, that's unbelievable.
Pretty out. That was a couple weeks ago.
Yeah. And look at our table down there.
Yeah. That table's phenomenal.
So things like that, I've always wanted people to associate that kind of stuff with our brand ShopSabre.
Yep. And you think about how much it's evolved. When you started doing this, it was all about the cabinets.
Yes.
Last year we did a boat. We sea deck.
But now think about where this has led to. Now the internet's changing.
Yeah.
YouTube's changing.
Yep.
Those extension pads are awful because and all that stuff.
Yeah.
So we've kind of had to change the format a little. That's what I do. So let's say now, if we're going to make something, right? We basically don't want to spend more about 8 minutes because they will watch it.
Yeah, correct.
Okay, and most of it I want to be machining.
Yeah, correct.
I want to see the machine, not be talking on the software. So the video formats now are this. You basically got introduction and what I call defining the product.
Yep.
Defining the problem. So we say this is what we're doing. And then a really quick speed of how we program, and the rest is machining and it goes. Okay, now, but the problem with that is you get a guy that says, how am I going to learn to do that?
Correct.
All right, that's where SabreTalk University comes.
Correct.
So then all of a sudden, and if you don't know what that is, once you buy a machine from us, you become part of SabreTalk University. So you got the access to all our stuff.
Yeah.
All right. So for instance, we're going to do a video, and there's no time limit on that part.
Yeah.
I always tell people, if you click everything I click, you'll get the same outcome I did.
Correct.
That's difficult. You got to make sure you don't leave something out.
Correct.
But now think about that. So now when we do our video, we do, because most of the software's done with Sabre Nation. Everything I do on the screen's filmed.
Yep.
Okay. So this is what you see when you remember Sabre Nation.
Mm-hmm.
What you see on the YouTube video is that takes about 30 seconds.
Correct. Yeah. It's a nice bonus to being a customer because
Absolutely.
our goal isn't to teach everybody in the industry.
Right.
Our goal is to teach the people who've invested in our product. And I love that about it because, Bob, you're really good with it. You spend the time going through it and showing me what buttons to click at what time, what tool settings, how do I set things up, and it really helps you produce the same parts.
We just did the dinosaur.
Yeah.
We're going to be doing the dinosaur at the show.
Yeah.
And every time we do the dinosaur, you get all these stuff on it. So I did a video yesterday or day before where we basically, I went through and said, okay, here's where the shapes come. Here's how you start.
Yep.
Here's how you figure out a size. Here's how you scale. All of that thing. Here's how you tool path.
Yeah.
It's all on a video. It's about 13 or 14 minutes.
Yeah.
If you watch that, if you do everything I did, you get that same dinosaur.
And that's what's awesome. I just love it. I mean, I still have, from when you and I first met, you cut me a dinosaur. And I don't know if you remember that. Remember you made me some small dinosaurs? And I still have them glued up in my house from when my boys were playing with them. And they sit in the toy room now. They don't get played with nearly as much anymore. But it's pretty cool. We built the dinosaur out of wood for my kids, and they love them. I mean, they still to this day have them.
That dinosaur came back from the Como days.
Really?
Yeah, here's where it happened. I was at one of my distributors where we had Tech Center because we used to play all.
Yeah.
So we came up with this little kid's toy you could buy. It's made out of balsa wood or something, and all these fit together. So back then, we didn't have the kind of software we have now. So we took those and put them on a copier, made a copier. That gave us an outline.
Yeah.
We had an articulating arm digitizer and went around and digitized that's where those shapes were.
Wow. So you had to hand trace it essentially.
Oh, yeah.
Wow.
That's where I started. That's over 25 years ago.
That was pretty awesome.
I say that was a T-Rex. I've been cutting that for 25 years.
Yeah, I say for 25 years, the same T-Rex.
But you go to the show and they all want to say, can I have the file? So I've got a file ready for them.
Yeah, it's an awesome program. And we built one last year or 2 years ago for the show that was life size. It was as tall as me. Yeah. Pretty awesome.
But you see, the whole concept is it all falls back to who you buy the machine from.
Yep.
When you can be assured that when you buy a machine, we have the ability to show you how to do that.
Correct.
That's with Sabre Nation. How many members are on there? That's a bunch.
Oh my God. Yeah, it's thousands. Yeah, thousands of people.
So when you create a video for them, it's a big deal.
Yeah.
It's very important.
Yeah.
And so you got to be really careful that it's right.
Yeah. Well, that's exactly it. We got to do it right.
You can't do sleight of hand stuff.
Yeah.
It can't be theatrical.
Yeah, correct. and I think that's a big thing is because I think that's who we are as a company is we really have always been the company of we don't do anything half-assed, right? We always want to do it right. And that's from the programming, from the machines, the development, let's talk about that as we look forward, right? Kind of lastly, wrapping everything up here. But as we look forward, what do you see for the future of CNC machining? Like, where do you think it's going? And, what role do you think ShopSabre is going to have in the future?
Well, I think we're always going to be strong because we're a value. And it's not going to change because we control our destiny.
Yeah.
It's funny. Elon Musk said, build a car is easy, build a factory, make cars is hard.
Yeah.
It's just the same thing here.
Yeah.
Building one machine is easy. Building a factory that to make like we do is a big deal. And so that's not going to change. We have that capability.
Yep.
I see a little bit of change as our products. If you look at the life of a customer, what their needs are.
Yeah.
So I'll tell you a funny story, and then I'll tell you when we first started selling nesting. Yes. See, when I started machining, there was no nesting. So every time we started, you're going to need a twin table machine. Let's see what size. Yeah. So the idea was you're going to have to you could machine on one table and load it on the other.
Yep.
Nesting comes along and it killed the twin table market.
Yeah.
Because now think about what happens. You got a nest that used to be 10 minutes. Now for us it's 5 or 6.
Yeah.
So you've got, let's say it's a 10-minute nest. It takes you a minute or a minute and a half to unload.
Yep.
So your load unload ratio is 15%.
Yep.
So most of the time the machine is making.
Yeah.
And that's nesting. Well, that's not 100% true. That's true at 8 o'clock in the morning.
Correct.
At 3 o'clock, it's not.
Yeah.
Because workers are tired.
Yeah.
And so So all of a sudden, they said, man, is there any way to help that part?
Yeah.
And so what that leads to is some way to automate the loading and unloading part. And I see us moving. We've already moved there because the small lift is the front end of that.
Correct.
And that's a great way to do things because you can have multiple stacks of parts and you control that.
Yeah.
And then you don't have the problem you have with load unload is vacuum and all that stuff. You get dust on the part moves.
Yeah.
Well, when you do it that way, that eliminates that.
Correct.
Then all you have to for unload just get the table cleaned off.
Yeah.
And so that basically then the machine dictates the pace, not the work.
Yeah.
And so that's a natural progression for somebody who's already had a router and realizes the 15% is not 100% true.
Yeah.
It is early. Yeah, theoretically it is. But when the workers get tired, you know, man, I'm tired and I'm dragging.
Yeah, that Schmelz lift, man. I tell you what, we use them here in our shop now, and it's sped up our productivity because customers, they don't think about it. We didn't think about it. As you said, you know, you got a 200-pound sheet, you know, and phenolic is what we lift. But, you know, you got customers that are lifting 60, 70-pound sheets of plywood all day long. Yeah, they're, like you said, Monday morning, they're rare and ready to go. But by Thursday afternoon, they're worn out. Yeah. So having that Schmelz lift, you know, really, it compacts the space you need while still giving you the capabilities.
One of the things I've noticed as I've gotten older is the material's much heavier than it used to.
Yeah.
Now, that's what's nice about having my friend Sean.
Yeah.
Sean's pretty strong.
Yeah.
I used to have to lift all that stuff. Now Sean lifts. So could you go?
That's true, yeah.
But that whole Schmelz idea is great because that helps the load part. I mean, it could be a small person.
Yeah. Well, that's what's nice.
If you do it right, you could have multiple stacks of material so you know what you need to load. So I think that works out really well.
Yeah.
Very fast.
Sean talked about it in the episode before this. We had Sean on, and he was talking about how his 8-year-old loads his machine once in a while because it weighs nothing. You know, they use...
Is that legal?
I don't know if it's legal, but you know what? Sean's, his 8-year-old, though, loves to load the, you know, gets to use this vacuum lift. And it's like, you think about that. At 8 years old, you're lifting up sheets that, let's be honest, some 20-year-olds struggle to lift, you know? So it's pretty awesome. But like you said, you know, as we move forward, you know, I think ShopSabre is poised really well in the market. As you said, the value that we've always been after, you know, the fact that we're American made, I think that's huge. Yeah. You just don't get the same value overseas, you know?
And the thing about you don't know what you're getting. You know who you bought it from. You know
Yeah.
You don't speak Chinese.
Yeah.
You have no idea who they got it from.
Correct.
You know, maybe this shipment's one machine, next shipment's a different one.
Yeah.
And you're gambling your business on that. That's what you're doing.
Yeah.
I've been in that part of the business, and believe me, the communication is unbelievably difficult.
Yeah.
And then, you know, you complain and they don't ship it every 3 or 4 months. So then all of a sudden now you got all these deposits. Yeah, where's my machine? Well, so that's how they discipline you.
Yeah. Yeah.
You complain about something. Okay, we're not going to ship anything for 3 months.
Yeah.
The other part people don't realize, you pay for a container before it leaves.
Yep.
And so, but you don't know what's in it.
Yeah.
So then you open it up. It's surprise.
It's not what you thought.
You've already paid.
Yeah, exactly.
So it's really, really difficult.
I think the biggest advantage to our customers buying from America is it's the support and service after it, the parts. You know, let's be honest. We all are going to have a parts need eventually.
People break parts.
Yeah, exactly. If something's going to go wrong one day, whether you like it or not, the nice thing is that here, as you've seen it, Bob, we have a very large parts department. We walk out to the shelf, grab it, and ship it out.
It's millions of dollars worth of parts out here.
Yeah. Oh, and you don't have that same thing from an imported product.
Oh, no. And you don't know when they're going to change something. You don't control that. You don't engineer that stuff. They're buying what's for sale over there is what they're all doing.
Yep.
That's why you see so many commonalities.
Yeah.
They're all buying the same thing. And the thing about it, if you compare apples to apples, we're the same price, or we're very competitive because of our factory and our efficiency and how we think. See, that's the Elon Musk part of it.
Yeah.
And you see, that's what they don't have.
Correct.
And that's why we're always going to be competitive because how we do things.
Well, I agree with you. You know, I hope that today, obviously, you know, I hope our viewers learned something here. Bob, I appreciate you sharing your story. You know, I've had a lot of fun chatting with you today. Obviously, tune in for the next episode when we discuss with somebody else in the industry and keep going on this topic. But Bob, it's been a pleasure.
Thanks, Brandon.
Hey, thanks for tuning in, everybody.
Take care.